Yep.
This is Kickin' and Streamin' Podcast, a binge watcher's guide to streaming movies, TV series, and stuff. Here are your hosts, Graham and Jocelyn.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Kicking and Streaming Podcast. My name is Graham. With me, of course, is the absolutely fantastic Jojo. As I usually will say to her, hello to you, Jojo. Hello.
Hello, Graham. How are you doing today?
Jojo, I'm doing all right. I've got a day off and stuff, and we are recording on this basically new recording day for us,
Yeah.
which means a new day of a publishing day for our podcast. But
Mhm.
it's a great moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, so happy Thanksgiving to you if you are in the United States. This episode will actually come out on Apple Podcast in 8 hours on the day of Thanksgiving. If you don't listen to podcasts on that day because you're too stuffed with you know turkey and shit, you can always listen to it later during the week or during the weekend, right, Jojo?
That's right. Yep. You're
If you're not in the
stuffed with
United
turkey and
States,
drunk with power.
drunk with power.
Hmm.
If you are not in the United States and you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, still happy Thanksgiving to you. This is, you know, Turkey Day for us. It's what most people think it is. It's the day to be grateful for things we have too much of. Is that what it is?
Basically, and then you have Black Friday the day after, so you can just throw all that shit out the window and capitalize, capitalize, capitalize,
And buy more stuff.
and buy more stuff. So yeah.
Right. This is fantastic. Anyway,
Starting out dark.
today we are discussing the series The Devil's Hour on Amazon Prime. And I don't know what drew me to this series because I was the one who suggested let's watch it. And I have to say that while watching the series, I kind of like struggled watching it until, but I was very glad that I stuck to the end with it, Jojo. So we are going to talk about this one, and what is your personal opinion about this series? Because you watched it long before I even suggested watching it.
I
What
did.
what what made you want to watch it?
Peter Capaldi. I love Peter Capaldi. I think he's fantastic. And when I saw that he was in this, um, and I read a little tiny bit about it, I was like, this is worth giving a shot. And it was a slow burn, but it hooked me after I think the second episode. And yeah, so I'm glad I gave it a chance to.
Yeah, so Peter Capaldi to me is like the Scottish Al Pacino
Yeah.
in more than one respect. I love this guy. He was not necessarily my very favorite doctor, but I thought he was a great doctor. He brought elements to the doctor that we hadn't seen since um, the first roundabout of the doctor during the 1960s and 70s. And I like the fact that he went so far back with Doctor Who in terms of personality, in terms of that regeneration of Doctor Who. Even though my wife wasn't a fan, but I love Peter Capaldi too, and I think if I'm being honest, that was why I decided, okay, maybe we should watch these. I have to say though that it's a warning to anyone who, if you struggle with this show because you are having a hard time following what's going on and where the show is going to lead, I don't know if that is intentional, but if you stick with it, you will see where it leads, and it will be a huge, huge, huge aha moment. Also, part of the reason I want to talk about this show is because um there is a threshold in which pseudoscience becomes science, and it takes courageous scientists to actually find the source of pseudoscience. It's just the whole thing about, you know, where there's where there where there was fire, there's ash, right? And
Hmm.
so sometimes scientists might become a bit too um arrogant to even discuss some subject matters because they always think there's no point in discussing these. The science is clear in this. And I'm going to put some examples when once we start talking about this, because uh, I want to draw the parallels between what happens, how interpreting dreams became part of a for scientific method in terms of psychotherapy, and well, why is it that we still have such a um, simplistic idea of what deja vu means, right? So,
Hmm.
Jojo, if you want to put it in your own words, explain to our audience what this series is about.
So this series is about it. It begins sort of dealing with the life of a social worker named Lucy. She's dealing with life and relationships. She's going through a separation. She has a son who is neurodivergent, or whatever the correct terminology would be. He's struggling. She's apparently had him tested, and he's not autistic, and he's not this, and he's not that. But so she's just, life is not great for her at the moment. She's struggling because of her separation. She's trying to figure out who she is in the world because of that. And the to add on to that, she has a strange phenomena that's been happening to her for a very long time, in that she wakes up every single night at 3:33 a.m., which in folklore is considered the devil's hour or the witching hour, anywhere between 3 and 4 a.m. That's traditional, uh, I guess,
That
Caucasian.
is true. I can attest to that, being
Okay.
from Haiti,
Got
and
Haiti too. Okay. All right.
yeah, and you know a little bit about the folklore of witching and witchcraft and shit like that, like the hour between 3, 3:30, 3:33, that means something, mainly because what's good is the half of 6. But please continue.
Okay, got it. So every time she wakes up, it's not just that she wakes up, it's that she's woken up from some kind of a horrible nightmare. And in some cases, her nightmares come true. And this has happened ever since she started having this from a young age. And she doesn't really know how to explain it, and she doesn't really know how to tell anybody about it without them thinking she's completely insane. So she just kind of brushes it off as deja vu. But where the series picks up is, things have gotten a lot more intense with her devil's hour wake up. Her son is becoming even more withdrawn and a little more strange. And at the same time, there is some brutal murders that happen around her, and the police sort of connect her to these through the hunt for a serial killer. And so this is about Lucy's story, speaking with the serial killer and trying to discover the cause of her strange dreams without being like, I'm completely nuts.
Yes. So the the beauty of this show, the beauty of this story, is that it leaves you with questions that y- you don't know what the answer is, and you're fine with it. The reason being is because the first question you have to ask yourself is, was there a serial killer?
Hmm.
One.
Hmm.
Two, is there some measure of truth to what the ultimate character in this story tell us? Or is he a completely delusional individual who has created an entire fantasy based on his own, again, delusion and self-aggrandizing personality. And so this is the beauty of it. But the more than dreaming, what this series deals a lot with is the science behind deja vu. And the the simplest explanation, or the scientific explanation of deja vu, is the fact that one side of your brain processes information a bit faster than the other one. And so by the time the other side processes that information, it almost seems as though you're just remembering something you saw just as it happens. That is incredibly plausible. And in terms of science, I find that to be quite logical,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But the reason why I can't bring myself to be always in complete agreement with this explanation of deja vu is because, again, scientists haven't dedicated enough time, in my view, to studying really the the phenomenon of deja vu. It's just, it seems like, it sounds more like they came up with an explanation that was satisfactory enough for the scientific community, and they said, this is what we conclude. Boom. Of course, yes, they may have done some research and blah blah blah, but was there someone who was willing to go a bit further? Why is that important? Because throughout the 16th, 17th, 18th century, the same thing happened with dreaming, with the interpretation of dreams. No scientist, no self respecting scientist wanted to find out, wanted to investigate or research what is behind dreaming and does it mean when you dream, except for a young German scholar named Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud didn't care. He didn't care about the prestige that he could have lost by going a bit deeper into examining what dreaming means. And he went on and did it and wrote books about it. And eventually, the interpretation of dreaming actually became part of the science of behavioral science and psychiatry and psychotherapy and all of that, right? Because there was more to dreaming than indigestion, as many many scientists dismissed it before as, yeah, I mean, dreaming is complete nonsense. It's just
It's just
most
your brain
likely,
making up
yeah.
pictures to
Yeah,
support.
most likely, if you dream, is because maybe you liked your dinner, or maybe something in your dinner wasn't sitting quite well in your stomach, and as that happened, you had dreams. If you had nightmare, that's most likely what happened. But Freud, I believe it was his father who died when he was at a very early age, and throughout his childhood and his early adulthood, he continually, consistently dreamed about his father. And he wanted to find out what exactly, what is there for me to know? You know, what is this unfinished business with my father
Hmm.
that I can't seem to let go of these dreams? And so when he tried to find answers, his fellow scientists were like, "No, man, this is then there's nothing here." And he said, "You guys can, keep your theory, but I'm gonna work on this and see where I can go with it and what explanations I can come up with." And so for me, that to me seems to be the same thing, the dismissive attitude that I think the scientific community has towards deja vu. And maybe I am just hanging on to some hope that is not there. But I feel I feel very strongly about the fact that there might be some larger explanations to deja vu. What do you think, Jojo?
Deja vu, I think pretty much everybody on the planet has experienced it at some point in their life. I used to get it a lot when I was a kid, much more often than I do now. And it is very unsettling. It's it is a complete feeling that you have absolutely done this exact same thing before, down to what the person is going to say next or do next. And I do agree with you in that there has been, as far as I know, very little solid scientific research into it beyond kind of a well, this must be what it is because that makes common sense. But as we learn, with anything with science, common sense does not really apply when it comes to the human brain. And
Right.
the human brain actually made up common sense as a concept on its own. So, the, the brain named itself, the brain named deja vu. So the brain came up with the idea of what deja vu is. So I do think that there is something there that is should it at least be, it would be interesting to see the MRI of someone who had deja vu, for example, as they had deja vu. Obviously, we can't predict when it's going to happen, which is what makes it so
Right.
difficult. But
Yeah.
that would be fascinating. I mean, there was the case recently of the gentleman who actually died while he was having an MRI, and they got to watch the brain activity as the brain died, and they learned all kinds of things that they didn't know before. And that was a pure accident. They didn't they didn't know the man was going to die in the MRI.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
hey, man, are you going to die
are
soon?
you going to die?
Hop
Because
on this machine.
let's slide you in there and see what happens. But just the idea of that is fascinating. And so yeah, I would like there to be some sort of scientific study. It would be interesting to see if there was a way to trigger deja vu, which I don't think there's ever been
That would be
anything done with
interesting.
that. If there was a way to go, these particular electrical impulses, because they've found, electrical impulses, they can control some reactions, some emotional reactions to things through small electric shocks and that kind of thing. There's been studies done with that. So I know that a lot of studies are done on mice, so it's difficult to ask a mouse if they have deja vu.
Yeah.
So that's because their brains are so similar to ours, mice. Um, but I do think that it would be wonderful to learn more about it and not just have it go, oh, this is how it is. And of course, immense respect to the scientific community, but as you said, and as I've read, I don't really know that there's been a huge amount of actual hard data that's been looked at when it comes to deja vu, as opposed to just this is what it is.
And if you happen to stumble upon this show for the very first time in your life, upon this podcast, you're like, I thought they were supposed to be talking about a series. Why are they talking about deja vu? It is because the series that we are discussing, The Devil's Hour, is very much about deals a great deal, I want to say maybe, um, with the phenomenon of deja vu. And so it got me thinking because this, as you said, Jojo, this is something that happens to all of us. This is something that happens to all of us. But at the same time, is it something that can be chronic? And when it's chronic, how much of it, how much does it predict? I suppose the question is, right? Because when you have experienced deja vu, are you seeing something that you thought just happened or you at some point saw happening? Or is it something that predicts maybe this will happen and then later on you see it happen? What have been your experience?
For me, it has been a very strong feeling of I have been here before. I have done this exact thing before. This person is going to come and say this thing. And, it could be something totally random as opposed to like, oh, Jeff's going to come in and be like, good morning. That would
Yeah,
that would be
right.
stupid. But it would be something
Yes.
along the lines of like, if I've got family staying with me and they haven't stayed with me in a very long time. This is just an example. This isn't a
Right.
complaint necessarily, but and my father walked in the room and said, "Hey, I just cut my finger off." Not that that's ever happened, but that is the kind of thing I have experienced. That's just
Yeah.
it's as bizarre and specific as that, as opposed to just
Exactly.
something that has happened every single day. Because if it happened every
Exactly.
day, it would be like, okay, that makes sense.
That's a
That
that's life going on a loop.
right, exactly. My brain is like, okay, yeah, this has happened so many times that it's going to happen right now. And sure, okay, it
Yeah.
has. But
Yeah.
and it's happened to me in places that I have never been before. Physically, have never ever actually been. I've never been in this particular museum, but if I go in this room, I know this painting is going to be here.
Yes. Yes.
And, and a lot of people will be like, okay, so that happens because you looked up the museum beforehand, or you did this beforehand, or somebody talked about it, or whatever. But to say to that, I know that as a child, we didn't have the internet. So there was absolutely no way for me to know what painting was going to be in the room of that museum, especially when we're talking about I'm not talking about the Mona Lisa or anything, folks. It's not like there's
Yeah.
people buzzing and
Sure.
talking about, oh my God, you can't wait till you the next room and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, oh, there's going to be a painting in that room of donkeys in a field by some unknown artist. Oh, look, here it
Right.
is. So yes, to me, that's fascinating. What about you? What have your experience? Are they similar, or are they?
So the thing for me is that, to my recollection, my experience with deja vu has never been something that immediately happened. The reason being is because most of the time I experience deja vu, it's something I can remember happening exactly like that. Me seeing it happening, it's almost as if a deja vu that I experienced as a child, and then it happens now.
Hmm.
And especially like for an immigrant kid like me back in the time, right? It's just that I remember vividly going through stuff where somebody says something, and then all of a sudden, boom, at this age, somebody says that thing, and I remember the place and the face and the exact words that were said. And I'm like, how could I possibly? And normally, deja vu is not a question of I'm predicting you're gonna say this or you're gonna do that. Deja vu is just it happens and all of a sudden it hits you. Holy shit, I've been here before.
Yes.
This happened to me. This happened. I saw this happen. No, maybe it didn't happen, but I saw it happen in my head at
Yes.
some point.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And this is to me why there has to be a genius behind this show, because this is someone or somebody who took these experiences and decided, what if we created an entire web of macabre uh, science fiction and an absolutely perfect storytelling style to talk about this particular issue in this series. And I tell you, maybe the writing doesn't make it a great or the greatest followable series ever, because like I said, I seriously considered giving up on the show not until episode 3, halfway through episode 3, until I started to see the angle. And for me, the biggest problem with this series is you just can't see the angle to it for far too long. And I don't know if maybe I'm as I get older, I'm a bit less smart. That I want I want throw me a bone, you know. I don't know. I don't know. So tell me why episode 2 made it for you. Why episode 2 told you, yeah, I have to continue watching this.
I it's a really good question because it wasn't like one thing in particular that happened. I think it was a culmination of the performances, and I think I started to get kind of an idea of what the writer was going for. And I wanted to see, one, I wanted to see if I was right, and two, I wanted to see if it was going to how it was going to play out. I wanted to see where they took this because it was a very interesting concept to me. And I was like, there's a lot of different ways this could play out. It could play out straight mundane and boring. Not, but you know what I mean? Like just a
Right.
regular cop
Yeah.
story. Could be just a regular cop story. Or we could go a little supernatural with this, or we could go a little like there's a lot of different ways this could go. And I think ultimately the direction that it did go in is fantastic.
Oh yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I am glad I hung in there. But I agree with you 100%. It is a very slow burn, and the first episode is very slow. And I part of me wonders if it isn't a case of I don't know. The writer on this, as you said, is I don't know. It was almost like he was like, okay, I want to lose the people
Yes,
that aren't going to get this, so let's lose them early on.
yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
then but everybody else is gonna stick with it. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
whoever
just
stays will get to this to
yeah.
the end of it and say, ah,
And say, oh my god,
yeah.
because there to me there are echoes of the OA in this. I do see some of the
There's
OA
a
in
bit of
this.
that, yes.
That is something that made me stick around too, because I felt that from the very first episode. I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of the specialness of the OA is coming out of this for me, and I
Yeah.
love the OA so much. I was like, anything, I'll take I'll take anything. Give me some of that OA goodness. But yeah, so there are echoes of that in here, and the just little bits and pieces. But I think that just speaks to how good this show is.
I tell you one thing for me, like this child actor is absolutely fantastic little dude.
Isn't he fantastic?
Yo, I was like, how can he go through these scenes without even fucking laughing?
I know.
You know, because part of the character is that he doesn't show emotion.
Yes.
And for me, it's for an adult, it's very hard to not show emotion. And how is it that a child actor, and he's a young kid, like I don't think he's anything but maybe 10, right?
Yeah, I would say
How,
probably.
yeah, how do you go through an entire filming, you know, of a series and absolutely nail the character that doesn't express any emotion, does not express, so much so that the very first time I saw him laugh, it creeped the bloody hell out of me.
I know.
Does that
I
make sense?
know. It does. It makes perfect sense because it's like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like if a statue suddenly started laughing.
exactly. Do you
Yeah.
remember the weeping angels on
Yeah.
Doctor Who
Yeah.
when all of a sudden
Yeah.
they have, like, you turn around, next thing you see them with expressions in their faces. That's the kind of feeling I had when he first laughed, especially because it was a belly laugh too.
Yeah.
It was like, huh. And then he repeated the joke to himself, which made you understand. Oh, so he got it.
Yeah.
He got it.
Yeah.
He's not a dumb little dude. He's actually a little genius, the kid,
Yes.
the character. It's
Yes.
just that it's almost impossible to understand a child who, I mean, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think most adults put a lot of uh, work in understanding children.
Agreed.
It's mostly what we must do as adults, and I say this based on my own experience when I was a kid, is that we expect kids to be a certain way. And if they're not that way, then there's something wrong with you, and you get chastised, and you get punished, you get and you get often asked, why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like your little cousins? Why
Yeah.
can't you be like so and so?
Yeah. Why can't you be
And
like me when I was a kid? I was perfect.
oh yes, there is no damn parent that wasn't a genius in school, did all of their homework,
Mhm.
obedient to their parents, and so on and
Amazing
so forth.
long. No, yeah, exactly. Always ask for permission. Yeah, exactly. No, I
And
agree.
so, and so for me, that was the case with this kid. And the only person who actually said, you know what, man? I'm gonna fucking love you no matter what. No matter what they think of you. I know you're special and not in a bad way. I know you're special.
Yes.
I know you're going through some stuff that are larger than anybody else's brain can comprehend.
Yes.
I'm gonna
Yes.
stick with you. I am going to stick with you. And this was beautiful in that way for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I stuck with the show, because I'm like, I have to see if this kid is going to cry.
I love the dynamic of the mother figure because the actress is brilliant that portrays Lucy. But Lucy is also beautifully written, and she is written sympathetically, but she's not written in a maudlin way at all. She's not like this, I don't know, saintly figure that you
Right.
know she's not perfect or anything like that. But
Yes.
she has this beautiful, unwavering belief that her son loves her, and
Hmm.
that's enough for her. She wants him to be happy. She wants to understand what's going on. She wants to know what his place in the world is so that he can help find it. But at the same time, she does not need him to express love or to say love for her to know that he loves her. And that's, I think, is wonderful and also a huge juxtaposition to everybody else around Isaac because he is um everybody else, he has to give them something for him for them to
Right.
believe that he loves them. You know,
Yes.
you have to show emotion, or you have to show that you're hurt, or you have to show this or show that, or you have to say it. And he doesn't have the ability to do that, or doesn't understand the ability to do that. Um, uh, and I love that his mother is, he loves me, and I know he loves me, and that's the end of that. And
Yeah.
it's your fault that you can't comprehend that he loves you,
Exactly. If you
not
do
his.
not understand my child, that is your problem.
Yes.
That's your issue.
Yes.
But don't tell me. And that's, I like how she got defensive with the whole, no, listen, he's not autistic, he's not this, he's not that. Do not label my child. He's been to every pediatric psychiatrist in the area.
Yes.
He's not special education. He doesn't need any of that. The only thing he needs is for you to leave him the fuck alone.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically it. Because Isaac actually is a very good little dude. He doesn't misbehave. He doesn't
No.
do shit that he's not supposed to do. He actually does exactly what you tell him to do. And the other thing is, as she says, he does not lie.
Yes.
He does not lie.
Yes.
Because you've lost control of a child the first time you realize, oh my God, this little motherfucker just lied to me. That's it. The moment that your little nieces, and you know how we do. I mean, we always ask questions even though we know the answer. It's just we're looking for, are you going to be honest?
Yeah.
And it breaks your heart when you ask your child, your godchild, your niece and nephew, this. Tell me honestly, did you do this? And they freaking look at you and lie, and you're like, okay, I've lost them. I've lost them. Right? That's the thing that doesn't happen with Isaac.
Yeah.
So she's secure in the idea that if they told you he did this and you believe it because he's weird, you're wrong, because he does not lie. He doesn't do this kind of shit.
Yep.
So the character of Lucy Chambers really is, as you said, is not necessarily, she is an imperfect character, but she's a likable character because she is not looking to look perfect in anybody's eyes. She is not looking to, how, like, I feel like a lot of characters about mothers are written with this obsession of being good mothers.
Yep.
Oh, I'm a good mother. I'm a good mother. I just want to be a good parent. I just want to be a good parent. And truthfully, it's weird that we are so obsessed with that because being a parent is one of the very few things in life that you become it, but you will never be prepared to be it. It's just no. Well, like, how can you? I mean, you know how like mom and dad will freaking move in with you for 1 month to tell you exactly what to do with your firstborn and blah blah blah. And in the end, you're like, oh fuck it.
Hmm.
You know, by the time you have the second one, oh fuck's sake. Okay, my phone vibrates. Sorry.
It's all right.
You know, by the time you have the second, you're like, oh yeah, he's got a scratch on his knee. Okay, man, just put some water in it. We're good. You know, with the first one, you're like, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. The obsession of being a good parent goes away. But except in series and movie characters, it's all about I'm a good parent. I want to be a good parent. I'm obsessed with being a good parent. Lucy just takes it one day at a time with her child,
Yes.
and it's beautiful because she loses it sometimes with him.
Hmm.
She loses because, like, my dude will just creep up on you in the middle of the night and just stare at you without saying shit. And I'm gonna tell you something. My dogs sometimes do that, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Can you just? I mean, imagine if your dog does that. Imagine if it's a you know 8-year-old just standing there watching you. You
So
know.
I can actually speak to this from the side of a child because I was the creepy child that would do that.
Oh, really, Georgia?
I was.
Here's the
I
crazy
was.
thing. I kind of believe it though.
Yeah, yeah, I was, because I was very I hated to wake anybody up. I absolutely hated to wake anybody up. But I would have, as kids do, issues in the middle of the night. You've vomited or you've had a bad dream or something has happened. So I would go and stand by my father's side of the bed because my mother shit wouldn't wake up my mom. Like, you could have an explode a nuclear bomb outside the window and she ain't gonna wake up. But
That's me right there.
but I would go and stand by the side of the bed where dad was and just silently pray that he would wake up and help me. And I can say from the child's standpoint to have the adult go, "Oh my god." Is you feel terrible, you do as a kid, or at least I did. I felt terrible, but at the same time the relief was like, "Oh, thank you Jesus, they woke up." I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to shake them. I didn't have to do anything. Of course, the parrot is like, "Oh my god," and everything else. But as a kid, you're just like, "You woke up. Thank God, I'm covered in puke. Please hold me." I remember doing that one time to my sister when she came to visit, and I adored my sister, and she was much older than me, and just liked to stare at her because I was a creepy little kid and I'm a creepy adult. Um, and so she was asleep, and it was to me it was late. It was probably like 5 o'clock in the morning, but to me I was like, oh my god, why isn't she awake? And
Oh
I had snuck
God.
into her room, and I just stood there and was just watching her because I thought she was beautiful. And she woke up, and it was fuck. And I
Oh
didn't
my
know what
God.
that word was because my parents had been really good at keeping that away from me. I didn't know what that was, but I know what it is now. And at the time, I was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I just thought you were beautiful." But when you've scared somebody to death, their reaction, it doesn't matter if you tell them that
Yeah.
you were just looking at them because you thought they were beautiful. It's still creepy.
Yeah. Do you know the crazy thing is my son, he wouldn't just stay there and and stare at you, but he would just go in silently and then tap you on the shoulder 3 times. It's such a specific thing. He would just tap you on the shoulder 3 times. And then, like me, my wife, you just you just take one step and she's awake.
Mhm.
Man, no, man, I'm sleeping, and you have to really wake me up. And so sometimes he'd be like trying to wake me up, and I'd be like, I'm sleeping here. And then he would just like lose it, just shake me like, Daddy! I'm like, what? So yeah, but kids do. I mean, it doesn't have to take a kid like Isaac to scare the bejesus out of you. That's for
Mhm.
sure. But
Mhm.
yeah, all of this to say that part of what fascinates me about the character of Lucy Chambers is that again, she is a fantastic mother, but she's not obsessed with showing it to the world or
No.
anything like that. She just, she's a human being who goes through shit with a kid that is by, you know, everyone's standards not normal.
Yeah.
But I the extreme to which the writers take the phenomenon of deja vu is what I'd like to explore.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of cases like this in which somebody uh, can prevent things from happening based on deja vu?
I
Is that even
don't
possible?
I don't know that I have. I don't know that I have. And I haven't with anybody that I've known personally. I can say that definitely. Um, but
And so let me ask the question here. So, if you were a juror and you listen to Gideon's account of what he's done and why he's done what he's done, would you convict, or would you think this dude needs help? He
this
needs
dude
mental
needs
help.
this dude needs help. I mean, that's if we're going to talk about a real world scenario here,
Yeah.
then yeah, you have to, even if it's compelling.
Would you not have any what if as
Yeah.
to what if there is
Yeah.
something there?
Yeah, I would have a what if, which is probably a good reason to recuse yourself as a juror.
Exactly. That's exactly after I watched this series, I'm like, I don't think I could be a juror here
Yeah.
because I'm okay. I understand the moral imperative, and perhaps it's morally corrupt to punish anyone preventatively. There's no, because if I haven't done shit, you can't punish me for what I've done. I've not done. Just because something tells you I will end up doing such and such thing.
Right.
So that in and of itself, morally, is wrong. And there's no, you know, humanly, there's no denying that right there is, there's no room for that. But if you had someone as compelling and as eloquent as Gideon explaining to you, this is what I've done. Because here's the crazy thing, though. For better or for worse, the only person Gideon has killed is his father.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
I I well, by the end of the episode, you're not quite sure because of
Yeah.
by the end of the
There's
series,
that.
I should say.
Yes. There's that.
Yeah.
There's that.
But at the for the OG Gideon. For the yeah, for the OG Gideon, he actually really never killed anyone.
Yeah, as far as you can tell,
Yeah,
based on what he's told you.
true.
But I mean, there's a body count there. So
Yes.
so when
Yes.
you watch this series, arrive to your own conclusion. And if you would like to have a chat with us about it, that is, that we would love to do that. We would love to listen to what you have to say. But we highly recommend this series. And I'm gonna say this, Jojo. This series to me is actually a 5-star series.
I
To
agree
be
with you.
honest,
I agree with you 100%. I do. This is fantastic, from the writing to the story to the performances to the casting. It's just practically perfect in every way.
absolutely fantastic. So the cast here, as we said, led by Jessica Rain as Lucy Chambers, Peter Capaldi as Gideon, Nikesh Patel as Ravi Dillon. Mike Stevens actually is someone that most people who've watched Ted Lasso will know, because he plays the character of Jamie Tart on the series Ted Lasso. It was actually unbelievable to see him elsewhere, because for me he's uh, you know um, Jamie Tart, and also Mira Sayal as Dr. Ruby Bennett. She was absolutely fantastic.
She was
Uh,
fantastic. She was fantastic. We
Barbara
Al.
Martin also was great.
Yep.
Yeah,
Alex Ferns. I enjoyed his performance as.
and he always plays the hard ass cop.
Yes. Yes.
Always plays a hard ass cop. Yeah,
Yes. He was. He
and
was
the
great.
child Benjamin, is it Shivers?
I think so. And it looks like this is like the first thing he's done. He's or the first thing that's been released that he's done.
This
So
bloody kid is insane.
he's
If
fantastic.
if nothing else, watch this show for this kid because he will surprise you. We have to call it a day in this episode, and again, we're more than willing to have an extended chat about this episode with you. If you would like to do so, just shoot us a, a text, an email, put a comment on our YouTube channel, and we can come back and have an extended chat. But
Yes.
yeah, this has been great. The show is called The Devil's Hour, and this is our series review. Jojo, what do you rate this show on in your own opinion?
Oh, I agree. 5 stars.
5 stars, right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
that is that. You can find us on social media. You know where to go if you're looking for us. Um, and we will see you next time. Again, thank you for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, and if you listened to this episode on our regular podcast uh, platforms, if it's your first time, subscribe, come back. We'll be here every Thursday with new episodes for you. Thanks very
Yes.
much for me and for Jojo. This is goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to Kickin' and Streamin' Podcast. If you found value in our content, please subscribe and share. We would also be delighted to hear what you think of this podcast. So please rate us by writing a quick review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all major social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Join the conversation happening today on our Facebook group.